I had just gone out of a 5-year relationship. My father was diagnosed with cancer, and I was
Wow.
going to work every day. Even though I'm a business owner, it felt like a job, guys. Like I wasn't fulfilled to do what I was doing, which is providing capital to businesses across the country. I was in pain, emotional pain, which to me is more severe than physical pain. You can't be unhappy and grateful at the same time. So if you shift your perspective to one of gratitude, you automatically elevate your state. Let me dive deeper and give you an example. You can't throw stones at every dog that barks, right? Like stay in your lane.
It's all about momentum. I just feel like once you start to do something, the motivation will come.
They've been to 25 Tony Robbins seminars, and I'm always in my head, I'm like, I love Tony, nothing but respect, but how many do you have to go to before you start taking action?
If there was a possibility for you to become immortal, would you choose to? And if so, why?
It's not what you look at, right? It's what you see.
It is indeed what you see, and that applies to Craig's story as well. It was only when we started talking to him that we realized what this man has been through. After college, he went to Wall Street and had a ton of success. But it all came with a lot of stress, and Craig felt unfulfilled and unhappy with his life. He then went and built a new business all the way to 8 figures. But still, it wasn't until he started running marathons, 4 of them to be specific, when he realized that he needed a change. The pandemic came at the right time for him. He started NLP, Neuro Linguistic Programming, and we talk about how one can shift their whole life through shifting their perspective and much more. Craig tells us what keeps him motivated and at such an elevated state. Guys, I kid you not, you haven't heard such a tonality and energy ever before. But I will leave you to it. So, with that said, ladies and gentlemen, Craig Siegel.
You are listening to The Grateful Show with your hosts Pascu
and Bogdan. Join us on our mission to spread awareness around mental health and make people feel happier and overall more grateful.
Each week, we bring you an inspiring guest, stories, and a message that will help you become your best self and pursue your life mission. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to The Grateful Show. I hope you guys are doing awesome, because today we have no one other than Craig Siegel. How is it going, brother?
It's going great. I'm super honored to be here today. I'm a big fan of both of yours as well. And you have my word, we will manufacture magic here today.
Awesome.
That's so true. I appreciate you and what you're doing as well. Just to break the ice, Craig, what are you grateful for today?
I'm grateful to be here with you guys today and create magic and provide a lot of value to your fantastic audience when you guys drop this episode.
Awesome. Let's just break the ice. And I want you, Craig, to give our audience a taste into who Craig is, what you've been through so far, your story, and how you come to be where you are now.
Okay, great question. So my name is Craig Siegel. I'm a mindset coach. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a performance enhancer. Most importantly, I am a breakthrough manufacturer. I help people revamp their mindset. And I believe that people are not broken. They don't need to be fixed. But a tweak in their mindset, a change in their perspective, everything opens up. And I believe that we're all worthy of living the life that we desire. And, I wasn't always in this state, so to speak, or doing what I'm doing now. After college, I went to Wall Street and had a ton of success. Obviously, also that comes with a lot of stress, and found myself unfulfilled, and kind of the happiness went away with that stuff. So I pivoted and started another business on my own, built that up to 8 figures, and it was very successful. But just to be honest with you guys in the audience, I wasn't fulfilled in that. And I had all this built up energy and fuel that I wanted to apply to something great, but I didn't know what it was. And so I started running these marathons. And it was a great outlet for me. But ultimately, to be transparent, it wasn't until the pandemic where I actually had a moment to reset and really, not to sound too spiritual, but just listen to the whispers and put it all together. And it was like, of course, Craig, you're always such an advocate of personal development and self-help and sharpening the axe and so forth. And this is my purpose, and it's also my passion, is to help people. I've always loved that. And so once the idea came to mind on a run the next day. I thought of the brand name CLS. I went all in. I started putting out content, sold out back-to-back programs, just launched the podcast, 30,000 downloads in 4 weeks, and the rest is history, so to speak.
The rest is indeed history, and I have absolutely no doubt that it will be history. But guys, I just wanted to pause this podcast a little bit because we are just about to dive into a lot of insightful tips, a lot of interesting stories about what Craig has been through. And before that, we would really appreciate if you could take your time, take a screenshot of where you're listening. It can be iTunes, Spotify, anywhere really, and just post it on your Instagram, post it on your stories, share it, tag us at Grateful Show, tag Craig at GreatSiegel_CLS. And we will not only appreciate that, but we will also repost it, and of course be very thankful for helping us out, because only with your help we will be able to bring such guests on the show in the future. Enough with a break. Let's get back to it.
Amazing.
Yeah, I mean, it's just awesome to see how, for some people, this pandemic was so awful because, like as we already know, I mean, a lot of people just went into a really, really bad place because they just broke their routines, they just broke their habits, and they just had to do something completely new. And a lot of people just got into depression, anxiety. But even for me, and I love to see that for you as well, it was a really, really good thing. Even though obviously with all this pandemic, a lot of people die. But yeah, it's just awesome to see that throughout these like really bad times, people are just doing the work and are just trying to rediscover themselves when everybody else is just breaking down.
Yeah. And let me just be clear. I'm very sympathetic for everyone that's going through challenging times right now, myself included. But the way I see it, you can do nothing or you can do something and get to work. And I always like to say, transform from reactive to proactive. And so, you know, the pandemic was very challenging, but there's always a move to be made. And very fortunate for me, and I'm very grateful, which is the theme of your show, is that it provided me a moment in time to create some space and really identify what my gifts are and what I'm supposed to do in this world with the short time that we have.
Mm-hmm. I want to quickly mention, because I remember both me and Bogdan realistically only just started pushing the paddle with this podcast and with what we do overall since March last year when we were in London and everything basically stopped. And I remember it was either myself or you, Bogdan, talking on the stories and being like, guys, you remember like last year when you really wanted to have some time for doing something in particular. Now you have that time. Take advantage of it. It's not going to last long, but do the best that you can with this time that you have right now in your hands. And people like yourself, Craig, have definitely done that inner work without sounding too woo, have discovered something that was there this whole time, and basically I have leveraged that for the better. But without going any further from your story for now, I just wanted to ask you, like, what has happened in your mind? Because it's definitely been a huge mindset shift from like not being able to run a mile to basically doing 4 marathons within a year. What happened?
Yeah, great question. So when I started studying NLP, neuro linguistic programming, is really when I discovered what I'm capable of in this world. And everyone is capable of the same things once they start to understand this NLP or this CLS technology that I put a spin on. And what that means is people don't respond to the world as it is, guys. They respond to their map of the world. And so when you alter your map, you change your world. So you're basically acting as a representation of what your mindset perceives to be possible or not. Just like a fast sports car that has a governor on it, they can't go past a certain speed. When you literally change your perspective on what's possible, it's not what can I do, it's what can I do. And so when I first started running, like you guys just mentioned, I was a little humbled by the fact that I had always been into lifting weights and so forth, but cardio was never my thing. I was humbled the fact that it was challenging to run a mile for me. And so as challenging as it was, I get very addicted to like challenges and like things that excite me that I can overcome. And it appeared very early on into my running journey that running was significantly more mental, in my opinion, than it
Yeah.
is physical. Am I really tired, or is it that voice in my head that tells me I'm tired? And so I started to work on that voice in my head and try to own it as best as I can, or at least stiff arm it and hold it at bay. And then naturally it went from running a mile to running a 5K, then a 10K. And I was like, let's just run a marathon. Let's just see what we're capable of. And then so we did that. And I ran a very good time for my debut marathon, someone who wasn't a runner. But naturally, once I finished that, which is a big accomplishment, I said, if I ran that, can we break 4 hours, which is a thing in the running world? It's
Yeah.
a really good number for like a normal civilian, not a
Yeah.
professional. And so then I was very dedicated to doing that. And so it took me a third try to break 4 hours. And I'm very grateful to say that, because I want everybody to know, like, we guys like us, we embrace failure, right? Because we learn from it and we get better. So on the third marathon, I cracked 4 hours. And then because my map of the world expanded to what I'm now able to do, it's no coincidence out of my fourth marathon, only a couple months later, I shattered 4 hours with 3:39. So to answer your
Wow.
question and come full circle, I believe running is 95% mental, as long as you're capable of putting
Yeah.
one foot in front of the other. And I just found that to be so challenging, but also such a great, beautiful metaphor for life.
Yeah, I just feel like amazing story, first of all. And I just feel like everything is just around your mental, or around your attitude towards things, because of course that you have to have that knowledge in order to do something. But for a lot of people, they don't really know what they want to achieve or what they want to do. They just have the confidence to go out there and get it, and they just get it. And there's so many people who just like read hundreds of books, but they don't believe in themselves and they don't have that confidence to go after that thing, and nothing is happening. So like you said, I feel like 95% of what happens is just you going out there for it.
Absolutely agree with you, 100%.
There was even Gary Vaynerchuk, definitely well-known guy. At some point, I think it was like 2016, I was like obsessed with his content, and it clicked with me. There was a video of him saying, how many more videos, how many more podcasts, how many more books till you actually get off your couch and actually do the thing that you want to do? It's the same with like running a marathon. It's the same way like starting a business. But yeah, definitely very, very inspiring challenge to say the least. Story to say the least.
And real quickly, just interject. I love that you just said that in regards to that Gary V video, because it's so true. How many podcasts do you have to listen to? How many inspirational videos do you have to watch before you take one step in the right direction, and then you start to gather momentum? So I'm so glad that you brought that up, because for your audience, it's so valuable. It doesn't matter how much knowledge you have if you're not going to take a shot and begin to apply it. It's so key. I'm glad that you guys brought that up.
Definitely. It was the case with myself last year as well. I've been through like a very tough 3 to 4 months, beginning of last year, that I really went on like a path of self-discovery. And I realized that at the end of the day, it all comes down to me, because I kind of already knew what I was supposed to be doing. And it's the case with a lot of people, especially people listening to podcasts, especially people reading books, doing their routines properly. Almost all of them have the necessary awareness to know what they should be doing, but instead of actually doing that thing, they distract themselves. They don't distract themselves with like things like alcohol or drugs or anything like that. They distract themselves with like other tasks, or like other things that would keep them away from actually facing that fear, facing that discomfort, facing the rejection, and eventually pushing through what they were afraid of.
So true. I absolutely agree. And it's like you said earlier, like in the pandemic, I knew so many people that were just watching Netflix and like day drinking. And in my head, I thought the same thing that you guys did. I was like, when are you ever going to have this time again where the
Yeah.
world kind of sits still, that you had like a passion project or something that you've been thinking about starting forever? This is the perfect opportunity. And I think there's two types of people, right? There's guys like us three that utilize that window to take advantage and use this as a resource. And then there's the other people that just want to kind of waste time, so to speak. And I say that respectfully, because, not everyone has the same goals. And I appreciate that. I
Definitely.
absolutely respect everyone's vision. But we may not have an opportunity like this where the world sits still. So you want to take full advantage of it and explore some opportunities that you may not have had until now.
100%. They're like,
Agree.
especially like with people listening still, we are still in a very uncertain time in history. And like there was a saying, I think it comes from like back in Japan, that with every crisis comes a moment of opportunity. It's even mentioned in Psycho-Cybernetics, amazing book. I'm just about to finish it. And I think in the chapter 13 or 14, there's a full chapter, like 45 minutes, where basically the author is only talking about how you can creatively go through a crisis or through a moment of crisis, through a moment of uncertainty, and bouncing off that with success. So it's
Love that.
definitely a valuable thing for our listeners. But I wanted to go back a bit in your story, Craig, and really tap into like what has made you to basically first and foremost pursue entrepreneurship, because it's definitely not something that a lot of people can first and foremost tackle, and also be able to take all that stress in, because we know it's not easy.
Yeah, it's so true. And for me, you know, whether it be on Wall Street or when I started my second company, which was mine, you know, being an entrepreneur is, I guess, maybe like a state of mind, so to speak. And for me, I always wanted to control my own destiny because I'm not afraid to put in the work. I love to work, to outwork everyone. And when you find something that you're really excited about, you know, for me, there's nothing else that I'd rather do, especially now that I finally found my purpose in life. So I never really wanted to answer to a boss. I wanted to control my time, my income, anything that I could control. And I was always more of like a creator. I wanted to, you know, be ambitious and create things that I'm interested in, not kind of just go through the motions and have to answer to somebody else. And so I always had that inside me. But when I started CLS in the pandemic, it was like the first time that I really went all in on like something that I didn't have a ton of experience with, so to speak. And it's just so exciting. And let me just be clear to the audience, it doesn't just go up in a straight line. There's ups and downs, but there's nothing else that I'd rather do in the world. And it's just so much fun. And the best part is there's zero limits on what we can accomplish when you're an entrepreneur and your own boss. And I think that's what's so special.
Lovely.
Definitely.
Completely agree with you. Craig, just wanted to ask you if you want to share with us and our audience just normal day in your life.
Sure. So right now I wake up early, about 4:50 a.m. So I like to get an edge over the rest of the world. I'll sharpen the axe for a little bit, watch something a little bit inspiring, have a cup of black coffee, then I'll have a pre-workout, and then I work out every single day. I bang that out, and then every 3 hours I eat meal preps until dinner. That way I'm very systematic and structured with my routine. And in between then, just a ton of work. And let me be clear, because I'm building CLS, you know, I know like it looks like an overnight success to the audience, and I'm so grateful on the reaction that has cultivated from it and just everyone gravitating towards it. But make no mistake about it, I don't have a ton of balance right now. I'm working 20-hour days. I'm all in on this. I'm having so much fun. And to use the word again, I'm so grateful that I am this busy, because I know when people start a business, you know, they just want to be busy. They just want to have clients. If anything, I have too many. So I'm just so humbled by that. But I'm working nonstop on building this CLS so I could take this thing and take this message to a whole nother stratosphere.
Awesome.
This is the difference. Sorry to interrupt you,
Yeah.
Bogdan. This is the difference between basically having the entrepreneurial mindset, where, as you said, Craig, I'm gonna basically say it once again for our audience. There's no limits in what you can achieve, in how many people you can basically reach, in how much income you can make. There's no limits, and therefore, when you are in that environment, when knowing that you're on your only limit, it's very, very like inspiring, I guess, and it makes you hungry to wake up every single day. Go on, Bogdan. I interrupted you.
Yeah, no worries. I know it may sound cliche, but I'm just curious to ask you, where do you see yourself in like 5, 10 years? What's the biggest goal actually?
Yeah, so right now, when I started CLS, I always like to think a couple of years out and then work backwards. That's how I make a vision, so to speak. And what I want CLS to be is the biggest thing the world of personal development has ever seen, the apple of personal development, so to speak. Not for Craig. This has nothing to do with me. It's just that the message of revamping mindsets and seeing all the testimonials that we're getting from clients and so forth, it's so special. It's such a beautiful thing. Everyone manufacturing breakthroughs. I want to be able to do this on the grandest stage, the highest level, even bigger than Tony Robbins and so forth. And so it all started by reverse engineering it and starting with the coaching, selling out programs one-on-one. Then I did a mastermind, which enables me to coach a lot more people in one shot, like a group program. And now we had the launch of the CLS Experience podcast, anywhere you listen to podcasts, which has helped us reach a much bigger platform. We have, just like I said earlier, about 30,000 downloads in 4 weeks. So reaching a ton more people. So the goal is just to reach as many human beings as we possibly can with inspiring them to revamp their mindset. There's nothing that they can't accomplish. And also, let me just be clear, like, this is a journey, right? It's not a destination. So I'm still learning as I grow. My paradigms are still expanding. So don't be surprised if we still have a ton more surprises to come. We just get warmed up.
Yeah, there's gonna be no surprise. I mean, in no time you're gonna get there. I mean, your fire and the attitude says everything.
Thank you, buddy. I appreciate you.
No worries.
I wanted to ask you, Craig, because you're definitely a person that has been through a lot of challenges. What is the biggest challenge, or one of the biggest challenges, and what was the learning curve after that challenge, if you want to tell our audience?
So the biggest challenge for me was about 2 years ago, maybe a year and a half ago, where I was waking up every day unfulfilled and unhappy. And there was a bunch of different things going on in my life. For example, I had just gone out of a 5-year relationship. My father was diagnosed with cancer, and I was going to work every day. Even though I'm a business owner, it felt like a job, guys. Like I wasn't fulfilled to do what I was doing, which is providing capital to businesses across the country. It's lucrative and I'm grateful for that, but I wasn't happy. And to be honest with you, not to sugarcoat it, I was in pain, emotional pain, which to me is more severe than physical pain. And I just didn't like where I was going. And so thank God that the pandemic provided me that space where I can really dive deep and ask myself, is this the path I want to go down? And obviously it wasn't. And I kind of called an audible, and now I'm living in my vision, so to speak. And so there's nothing worse than waking up every day ungrateful, unhappy, unfulfilled. And I was in that place a couple years back. And so it's my mission to make sure I can help everybody revamp their mindset so they don't have to go through that, and they can find what fulfills them, what fuels their passion, what keeps them grateful, and so forth.
Awesome. Very powerful. I want to touch upon a thing that we touched quite a few times last year on the podcast, and that is the fact that not to give yourself as an example by no means, but it seems like with a lot of us in today's society, we tend to pick up on goals or visions or ideas that are not ours. But we don't know that. We don't have the awareness necessary to actually identify that the things that we want are not really what would make us happy eventually. And I'm talking about like making money. I'm talking about like owning materialistic things. And a lot of people fail to see that. And a lot of people, unfortunately, only witness it and only do have the realizations in the last years of their life, or worse, right before they die.
Yeah, so true. And let me be clear. I was in that category a little while back when I first started making a lot of money at the college on Wall Street. You know, I had all these materialistic things, but ultimately that ended up being at the place we just spoke about, where I was unfulfilled, unhappy. And so you realize, you know, God willing, you realize earlier in life than on your deathbed or whatever it is that you just said, what really fulfills you. And listen, happiness is an inside job. You have to decide like what makes you happy, what are you attracted to, and so forth. And for me personally, it's not all the materials and so forth. And let me just be clear, I like to make money because money in the right hands is a beautiful thing, because you can give back and you can serve. But ultimately what does it for me is helping people revamp their mindset, seeing that spark come back and making people happy and stuff of that nature. And so it's such a good point that you brought up. And I'm just so fortunate and grateful to have identified this relatively early on in my life and not have to wait to the end of life and realize the ladder was leaning up against the wrong house, so to speak. It's a great point that you brought up.
I wanted to touch upon another thing that our audience has probably already heard and noticed. It's your tonality and it's the way that you are speaking. And I gotta admit that I first came across people like yourself uh, probably around a year ago when I was in London. I was fortunate enough to be in a position to film quite a high-end event, and those people, they were like, I believe like 150 people. There was like a cool red dress code, and I wasn't having like one of those great days. I was a bit miserable. I didn't have enough sleep, and going into that event, I kind of felt like the energy elevated, and like seeing all of everyone was smiling, everyone was like very kind to each other, and they were like greeting me, and they were speaking nicely, and everyone seemed to have such a good time that at the moment, like in that moment, I was like, are they all faking it? Like, is it even possible for people to pretend at this level? And like spending more time with them, I actually did realize that, hold on a second, I was actually living in a bubble, and this is actually possible. Like, people can be this happy through like a lot of work, but yeah, it is possible. So definitely for our audience, it is a thing to notice if you haven't already.
Yeah, and also just to touch upon that, I think a big key ingredient to being in that elevated state all the time, and you guys will know this better than anyone, is living in a state of gratitude, because
Mhm.
you can't be grateful and miserable at the same time. So if you're living in that state of gratitude, then more times than not, you're going to be happy and you're going to be appreciative of every moment. And I think that's key. And you guys talk about this a lot on your show. That's the theme of the show, is living in a state of gratitude, right?
Yep, definitely, definitely.
Good.
Yeah, right. Craig, we just touched upon happiness, upon gratitude, and just wanted to ask you if you can share with us and our audience, I mean, three things, two, three, four things, how many you want, about what people can, actually, what people can do to make them happy throughout their day and throughout their life.
Yeah. So number one is live in a state of gratitude. And like I just said, like you can't be unhappy and grateful at the same time. So if you shift your perspective to one of gratitude, you automatically elevate your state. Let me dive deeper and give you an example. If you wake up tomorrow, right, and you know you're supposed to get a workout in, do you say to yourself, I have to work out now? Or do you say, I get to work out now? Just changing the vocabulary, the way you communicate to your brain, is a big difference. By saying, I get to work out right now, all of a sudden you're appreciative that you even have this opportunity, and it elevates your state. So that's definitely key. Number two, I would say identify what you're passionate about in life, because far too many people are waking up every day and just going through the motions and not doing what they love. And let me be perfectly honest with you guys. I was in that category a little while back. Very fortunate now to be doing what I absolutely love, and I'm living inside my vision. So for everyone looking to become a happier person overall, definitely identify what your passion is. And by doing that, you'll be excited every day to wake up. So between that and living in a state of gratitude, you're going to be constantly in a much happier state, so to speak. And also, like, not to sound cliche, but like, don't let the little things bother you in life anymore. Like, even if, like, as you continue, if you guys are doing a great job, I'm big fans, as you guys continue to like blow up and reach more people, you're going to have more success. You'll probably have a couple haters too. You can't throw stones at every dog that barks, right? Like, stay in your lane. Anyone else's opinion of you guys is none of your business. Everyone's going to have an opinion. That's never going to change. So focus on you. Make sure you're doing stuff for the right reasons. You're making an impact on this world, and you'll stay in that lane of happiness. I guarantee it.
Definitely. You heard Craig, guys. It all starts from being more appreciative, from being more grateful for the things that you already have, and finding that passion. Because without being in your zone of genius, without living your passion, you can't really be this fulfilled and happy all the time. But Craig, for our audience that might be struggling to find this so-called passion, what would be your number one advice, something applicable they can do right now once they get off the podcast to find that passion or to work towards finding it?
Yeah, so I'm a big advocate in journaling. I love to journal. You can't journal enough if you ask me. So that's where it's all going to start. Just write down some of your thoughts, some of your feelings, things that make you happy. Ask yourself this: if money wasn't an issue, what would you do? if you could do anything, all of a sudden you'll start to percolate some good ideas. And then from there, obviously, I have strategies on how to make it come to fruition and become a reality. But it's a great question because a lot of people say, I don't know what I'm passionate about.
Yeah.
It all starts with putting pen to paper and journaling. All of a sudden, you'll start to get some momentum. The brain will start going, the mindset, and you'll start to be at least get closer to what really fuels your fire. So,
Mhm.
all the audience listen, don't be afraid to journal. There's no right way to do it. You just dive in.
Yeah,
It's like the
definitely.
same thing with meditation. Like, sorry to interrupt you. It's the same thing with meditation. Like, as much as I don't want to be a hater, a lot of people are like, meditation is not for me. Or if they tried it, they say that it's boring or it's not working. And I believe it's the same with like everything, like journaling as well. It takes time to actually get into that flow. And as much as you would like to like write down 10 pages every morning, just start with like a few lines and build
Mhm.
up from there. Once you have the habit and you're actually sure that you won't miss days, yes, by all means start reading more and start discovering yourself better. Go on,
Yeah,
Bogdan.
and let me just challenge you guys real quick. How did you guys? Because you said this whole thing is still relatively new. How did you guys decide that you were going to go all in with this?
Well, to be honest, I mean, it was more like we said, we had a lot of time on our hands. The pandemic came, and we have done before, like, I don't know, maybe 10, 15 podcasts, like episodes. But we just said, okay, should we just stay in our bubble and just waste time? I mean, of course, we were doing our things as well, but to be more like a side hustle, we just started to do one and then two and then three. And then we just went on and on. And then we started to bring guests on the podcast. And it's all about momentum. I just feel like once you start to do something, the motivation will come, because a lot of people are just think that they have to feel motivated in order to start something, and it's not the case, because motivation doesn't just like hit you and you're all of a sudden motivated. You just have to do things, and after doing things, you're going to see results, and you will be motivated by those results, and then you will go on, and you're going to feel more motivated, more results, so on and so forth, right?
Absolutely. And also, motivation's temporary, like you just said. Like anybody can
Yeah.
watch an exciting movie and go to the gym for 2 weeks and then it fizzles. So that's why it's so key to revamp your mindset because that's life lasting. I'm glad that you brought that up.
Yeah.
Definitely. And to touch upon that as well as again in psychocybernetics, I got introduced to the fact that us human beings are goal striving creatures. Therefore, whenever we find ourselves in like certain situations, waiting in a line or like having to spend some time, you can never not do something. At least majority of people can't just sit by themselves not doing anything. And you have to like recognize that, people listening, that whenever you don't know what to do, you will do something. And more often than not, that something is not something that will get you closer to your goals. Therefore, if you still like, if you do really realize this, why not use this goal striving ability that we all possess towards like something that will eventually fulfill you, instead of scrolling on Instagram, instead of hating on other people, sleeping in, watching series, and so on and so forth.
So true. I agree with all of the above, my friend. Absolutely on the same page with you.
Yeah.
Craig,
Craig,
go on, go on,
sorry
go
for
on,
interrupting. Yeah,
go
just
on.
wanted to ask you, because I mean, of course, it may be very subjective, but what would you think it's better for someone to read, let's say, in a year, 3 books all over again, and then just applying them, or just to read, let's say, 50 books and just applying pieces of them?
To each their own. I don't think there's a right or wrong answer here. For me personally, 50 books seems a little excessive. Like when I see like a lot of my clients in the beginning, like they've been to 25 Tony Robbins seminars, and I'm always in my head, I'm like, I love Tony, nothing but respect, but how many do you have to go to before you start taking action? So I
Yeah.
think with this, it's a little bit like less is more. 50 books, it's like you're gonna just be going like this on a wheel. You want to have
Mm.
a few books, a couple great bullets, and then start attacking on those because there's such thing as like over analysis causes paralysis. You don't want to get to that. And listen, I've been there before where you're like down the rabbit hole doing so much homework that like you don't even know where to begin. It could be overwhelming. Listen, you can't hit two targets with one arrow. Find something that's applicable, like you guys said, and then start attacking and go from there. 50 books is a little bit excessive, I would say.
Yeah, love the answer. I mean, I completely agree. And talking about that, what would be those 3 books that you would recommend?
Yeah, so listen, I read a lot. So the 3 books that I'm into right now, one is the 48 Laws of Power, which is like all
Probably agree.
historic lessons. Yeah, exactly. All the greats from back in the day and how you could take their lessons, like when they were conquerors, and apply it to today. I think it's super fascinating. The second book would be The Power of Positive Thinking, which I absolutely love. You can't get enough positive thinking, you know? And then the third one would be The Secret right now, which is all about the law of attraction, which is super cool. And I love that as well. It's like when you're aligned with the universe, it starts to respond. But just to make a quick note on that, it's not just like, I want to wake up one day, look in my drawer and see a Rolex with diamonds. You have to be in the right headspace.
Yeah.
You have to be like working towards your vision and then utilize the law of attraction, and the universe will respond accordingly, not the other way around.
Definitely. I was
What are
reading
some books that you love?
Definitely highly agree, Psycho-Cybernetics. And right now I'm just finishing Master Key to Riches by Napoleon Hill, which of course majority of people have already read. Think and Go Rich. I would say is not as deep as Think and Go Rich, but it's more, I guess, actionable. And it really made me finally realize what he truly means by infinite intelligence, and how you can connect with like the universe and how the universe responds to your actions. And basically the way he puts it is there's a graph at the end of the book. I was reading it this morning, and that infinite intelligence basically links to your subconscious mind. And once you do all the work necessarily mindset wise to basically have the right subconscious mind, because the subconscious mind you can't really tackle in your day-to-day life, but once you feed your mind with the right nutrients, speaking, you will be able to basically tap into like the infinite intelligence, and finally get signs, and follow your intuition more and more.
Love that. Cool. I like that a lot.
Yeah.
Bogdan, I think you have a recommendation at least.
Yeah, I mean, for me, the Bible of the books will be the Chimp Paradox. Most probably you have heard about it. I mean, it's such a simple book, and at the same time, it's so applicable. So if you never ever read a book in your life, this would be a perfect start, because you just understand how to control, like Pascu said, your conscious mind from your subconscious mind, aka like the human versus the chimp. And there are so many books, but to be honest, I mean, not to be egocentric or something, but I just feel like almost every book just covers almost the same topics, and that is being positive, that is just go out there, put in the work, try to understand yourself, try to have a meaning. And talking about that, just this question came into my mind. What would you, obviously it's very subjective as well, but what would you say that it's the meaning of life?
The meaning of life to everyone is going to be a different answer. So you're right. It is very subjective. And listen, it's a journey. Like I said earlier, it's not a destination. So I think that we're all still figuring things out as we go, right? And that's the beauty of it. That's the beauty of life. For me right now, I want to touch as many lives as I possibly can. And so that long after I'm gone, the legacy of CLS will still be that people can go listen to a podcast episode or look at a piece of the content and immediately feel inspired and want to just do good and reach their potential and so forth. And so, for me, I just have such love for people and looking to help them and just become better. And so that's my purpose right now. And listen, like you can ask me the same question a year from now and things may change. But right now, that's what I'm so focused on, between that, my family. Also, I love to collaborate with great guys like you. It's just super cool to bounce ideas off each other and just provide the audience with so much valuable techniques. That's where I'm at. That's what's in my head right now. What about you?
Speaking of you, before answering, speaking of providing value to the generations to come. If anybody is right now listening into like 2152, we hope that the information that we are speaking about is still applicable. I mean, for myself, of course, it's about impacting as many lives as possible. Myself finally have been able to fully understand, not fully understand, but overall understand what makes me happy last year. And yeah, with that said, I just want to play in my zone of genius. And I say play because I believe that life is all just a game. We just tend to take it too seriously, but we shouldn't take it that seriously after all.
So true.
Yeah,
Love that.
I mean, almost same answer for me. I mean, if you'd combine your answer with Pasco's answer, it would be my answer. I mean, everybody has its own meaning, its own like. Everybody has to do something. So there's nothing
Yeah.
like written that you should be doing. I mean, for someone should be love, and even for me today should be would be love, and then in 1 year would be, I don't know, helping a lot of people, and then in 1 year, if something happens, I don't know, treating the world of cancer, and it would just change. But you just have to work towards something, because otherwise your life is just going to be wasted, isn't it?
You cut
100% agree with
a
that.
slight bit, but I wanted to ask you, Craig, speaking of like life mission and what this represents for yourself, I wanted to ask you the following question, and that is, if there was a possibility for you to become immortal, would you choose to? And if so, why?
You guys asked some very challenging questions. I appreciate it about you guys a lot. Yes, I would choose to become immortal if I can, just so I can last longer to help spread the message of CLS and helping people revamp their mindsets for generations to come, but only because of that reason.
Definitely,
Really
I
nice.
appreciate your answer, because we all the answers that we had so far, we obviously had answers of like wanting to stay immortal and not wanting. It would definitely be a curse and a blessing at the same time, being like immortal and not being able to die ever, and seeing all the loved people around yourself dying one by one.
Yeah.
But yeah, I really appreciate your answer. Craig, for our audience listening, you talk about realigning one's perspective and how important that is in anyone's journey. What do you mean specifically by that? How can one realign their perspective upon things and upon life overall?
Yeah, so in a nutshell, it's not what you look at, right? It's what you see. So different people can look at the same circumstances with a different perspective, literally like tilting your head, and you see it in a whole different situation. For example, when the pandemic occurred and a lot of people had access time on their hands, a lot of people looked at that to binge watch Netflix, and a lot of people looked at that like you guys did and myself, to make some moves and take advantage of the time. And how can you serve and help people, and how can you start something that you may have not had time for before that? And so that's what I mean by being aligned and like changing your perspective. And that's really, life is all about perspective. Like, where a lot of people see limitations, I feel as though you guys see opportunities. And I think that's why we have such a good connection. We're vibing right now, is because we have a similar frequency. And so, and also, not to sound too cliche, but I always like to look at things with a positive mindset, because what's the point of being negative? It doesn't do anyone any good. But when you look at things from a positive and grateful frame, all of a sudden good ideas will come to you. And so that's what I mean by changing your perspective and becoming aligned.
Yeah, I really love how you portrayed it. And yeah, just for audience to have this exercise in their minds, just to portray the power of being positive. I mean, just imagine that you are coming from your job and you had a bad day, but then all of a sudden you just feel like you shouldn't be like beating yourself and you should be positive. And then all of a sudden, like a positive thought came into your mind, and then you just smile all of a sudden, and you just made someone else's day better. And then so on and so forth, like a butterfly effect. But if you just would choose to be negative and to stay in your bubble, I mean, that person wouldn't be influenced, so that person wouldn't influence someone else, and so on and so forth. So yeah, I really love how you portrayed it. It's really, really powerful to stay positive.
To add a bit on your point, Bogdan, I was reading this on the other day on LinkedIn. There was a guy saying that it was the end of his day. He was from the States, and basically he was saying that it wasn't one of those good days. In fact, it was quite a bad day for him. He went through some arguments with his wife and all that. And basically he was saying how he's tried to be as positive as he could. Of course, it was very difficult, but he reminded himself that that day will pass, and after a couple of days that day might just happen to another human on the planet. And with that said, what the point that I'm trying to make is, whenever you are outside, whenever you are in the middle of an interaction and you see somebody reacting in a bad way, or you see someone driving fast by your car or doing something that doesn't really fit with your morals, just try to remind yourself that that person might be dealing with some issues. That person might have been having some fights with his wife, some arguments. Maybe they are in a very delicate financial position, and the worst thing that you can do in that moment is not show empathy and just try to react and like act on your ego and act on your emotion and try to basically have a fight, have an argument with that person, which is basically getting you nowhere.
True. I agree with that. And also, yeah, it's true. Like I always say, like even like people ask, like, how do you deal with haters? I'm just send them our love. That's it. Send them our love and we wish them the best. And you're right. Like you never know what somebody's going through. So, for me, like if I'm ever in a tough spot, I always try my best to practice living in gratitude, even when maybe you're dealing with a certain challenge. But ultimately, if you encounter someone that looks like they're in a little bit of a negative state, put your ego aside and just send them love. And just like you just said, I totally agree. Love that.
Awesome thing. Craig, just wanted to change a little bit the subject and ask you, what's one thing that you would change about yourself right now?
Yeah, so right now, and this might not be the sexiest answer that you're looking for, but right now I'm in the process of becoming my best self. I never felt so aligned. I never felt so purposeful and intentional with what I'm doing, helping people. I love my family very much. We're the closest family ever. And I'm doing all the right things right now for the right reasons. And so right now, I just want more of what I'm doing and continue to explore the deepest layers that I have available. And so I can honestly say, like, for the first time in my life, I'm 100% living in my vision, aligned, doing what I should be doing. And I just want some more of that. Again, if you ask me this question maybe a couple months from now, I might have a little bit of a different answer. But right now, at this moment, as we live and breathe, I'm doing all the right things that I should be doing. Thank God. Very grateful.
I mean, I feel like this is the sexiest answer that can be.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm very disciplined, so it's not like I want to change stuff with that. Just just try to reach more people, and if I possibly can, maybe spend even more time with my family and so forth. That's maybe something that I would like to change, because it's hard to find balance when you're building something really special from the ground up. So I guess to answer your question, I'd like to do a better job of finding that balance.
It's definitely something that we all are striving for,
Exactly.
day in and day out, because you can never have, I guess, health at 100%, relationship at 100%, business at 100%, your hobbies at 100%. I guess sometimes you gotta keep those levers at like 60% and just try to tackle them. But I wanted to ask you, Craig, and this is definitely something that we haven't asked so far any guest, but it just popped into my mind, and I think it would be of value for our audience. Do you believe that for every high, there is requested to be a low beforehand?
I feel like the universe is connected, and I feel that every thought, every action gets heard from, and there's no such thing as coincidences. I definitely believe that. Um, but I don't know if I believe that every high is interacted with a specific low. I do believe when you're doing the right thing and your heart's in the right place, there'll be a lot more highs for you, and the universe will respond. I also believe that when you do not so good things, probably come back to bite you in the ass. So I'm not so sure if it's an exact science, but I do believe that there's no coincidences. What about you?
I mean, I think it definitely. I completely agree with the fact that when you do things by heart, you tend to basically get into those lucky places where things just click for you. But on the other hand, when you do not do that and you do not do things fully by heart, it's often the case that yes, you might be climbing a ladder. Yes, you might be getting success, but at some point you're gonna fall, and that fall is going to be very dramatic, and it's gonna be very hard for you to basically catch yourself and not fall into like depression or anxiety or like very bad um, mental state. But with that said, with like mental state and mindset, I feel like we touch a lot upon the mental attitude, but I wanted to give our audience a bit of understanding of what do you do to keep yourself disciplined.
I just decide, I make a conscious choice and decision to be very structured and disciplined, because I don't like to not have a plan as best as I can, because then it leads to procrastination and then you go rogue and freestyle. Like I always teach my clients, like in the beginning, try to set up your day and make no mistake about it. We're not in the military, but it's good to have goals and a
Mhm.
strategy for the day. So, because that removes procrastination. So ultimately I like to be productive. That's when I'm like most fulfilled and happy and I feel like I'm making an impact on the world. And so I just make a choice to be disciplined, and I've been doing it for so long now that I've conditioned myself. So like if I said I was going to work out and I didn't, the thought of that would be pain to me. So that's what I associate pain with. So if I say I'm going to do something, I follow through with it, and that's pleasure to me. And so I like to
Mhm.
set myself up with a strategy, because ultimately I'm just conditioned to being very disciplined. Because for me personally, that leads to productivity. And I understand there's other entrepreneurs out there that love to not have a plan. And
Mhm.
nobody's right or wrong, teach their own. But for me specifically, I'm a big believer in discipline and structure, and that's a good recipe for success.
Yeah, and I don't know if you will agree with me or not, but talking about scheduling and about planning, I just feel like sometimes, let's say when you structure your day and you just put your task over there, and like just something comes up, or you just like all of a sudden become like non-productive and you just do something else, you just feel like quitting all day just because one single thing or one single action that you took just didn't go like you wanted to be in a nutshell. And I just feel like a lot of people have to understand that sometimes just putting less tasks, but the important ones in your day, even though you may have like 3, 4, 5 hours left of that day to do something else, just by completing those tasks which are important, like will give you that boost. And you gotta find that balance between knowing yourself and what you are capable of, and just knowing your awareness and how disciplined you are, like you said.
Yeah, 100%. And it's good to get momentum too. And just to cross things off the list gets you a little bit
Mhm.
excited, gives you confidence. Totally agree with everything you just said. I love that.
And to touch a
Awesome.
bit on momentum, it's probably not for doesn't apply to all the instances and for all people, but for myself, given myself as an example, it's usually the hardest to start something, and it's usually the hardest to gain some momentum of like 2 to 4 days. And once that's in place, I basically have close to no distractions. I don't mind waking up at 5:30 and doing whatever I set my mind to do. But on the other side, if I fall for like 2 to 3 days of procrastination, is very difficult to bounce off that, because I feel very guilty about what I've done. I start doubting myself, and I basically do the same cycle but in a negative way. And that's why I personally believe that we are our only limitation, and like yes, we are our biggest critics, but that can do good or it can do harm as well.
Craig, just wanted to ask you, what are the things that you want to be remembered for?
So I want my legacy to be that people remember me as someone who tried as best as he could, gave it his everything to help people. revamp their mindsets, fulfill their destiny, revamp, and just find their passion and realize that there is a better life out there for them. And I'm giving CLS my blood, sweat, and tears, my everything. I think that's a big reason as to why, I've had so much success so quickly on, is because I'm just giving it my everything. And so I want people to remember that I tried to help as many people as I can, and I showed love, compassion, and ultimately selflessly, I just want everybody to fly. I want us all to live the life that we desire. And right now, that's my life's mission. And so that's what I'd like to be remembered for right now.
It's
Yeah, I love
definitely
that.
mindset of abundance, because there are people that are thinking differently, and that is that if person X or person Y does better than me, that means that there's not enough left for myself, which is definitely not the case especially in today's economy and today's world.
Absolutely agree.
But with that said, Craig, I want to be very mindful of your time and of our audience time. And I just wanted to address you the last question of the show. Just take your time with it. It goes like this. You are on your deathbed and you are just minutes before your death. You know that you are going to die. There's no pain involved. But right before giving your last breath, you see the best version of yourself. You look yourself in the eye and see and comprehend everything that you could have become. How would you react in that moment, and how would you feel about the life that you've been through so far?
Yeah, and so it's a very deep question, and I respect the fact that you asked it. And the reality is, if you asked me that question a year ago, I would have a completely different answer than I do right now, because I didn't love the path I was going down a year ago, and I felt like I was not utilizing my potential and my God-given talents. But right now, I would look myself in the eye. On the path that I'm going down right now, I'm doing exactly what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm living in my vision. I'm helping as many people as I possibly can. And I would tip my hat to the version of myself who's doing what he's doing right now.
Yeah,
Beautiful.
lovely. Yeah, I love the answer. I mean, I have no doubt that you'll just be looking into a mirror.
Thank you, buddy. I appreciate that. It means a lot. Receive that. And you guys are doing great things too. And I know that your future self looking back would be very proud of what you guys are doing right now. This is just the beginning for you guys. I'm big fans. And I also can't wait to continue to watch you guys fly.
Appreciate you.
Awesome.
And to add
Really
on your point, and living your life from a place of passion, it goes to show that you are basically living each day without regrets. Because if you were to get to that point where you have to say goodbye to the world and you would have regrets, that might be probably one of the harshest and worst moments that one could witness in their life. But with that said, Craig, it was an absolute pleasure to have you on, and I have no doubt that our audience has more than enjoyed this conversation. And I just want to once again you to tell our audience what it is that you do exactly, how can you potentially help people listening, and where they can help you, where they can find you, and basically where they can listen to more of your energy.
Yeah, so I thought you'd never ask. So I'm a mindset coach. I help people get on absolute fire for life. Simply put, we help manufacture gigantic breakthroughs and get that spark back so that you can fulfill your destiny. You could follow me on Instagram at Craig Siegel _CLS, YouTube channel Craig Siegel, as well as Facebook, and the brand new CLS Experience podcast. Anywhere you listen to podcasts, it's breaking records in terms of downloads. It's all about showing the stories of some of the greats and what their mindset was as they overcame challenges. It's a beautiful thing. And how you can work with me is I do one-on-one coaching, which I'm sold out of right now. And I also do a mastermind, which is more of a group program, which I'm sold out now too. But in the next month, I'm going to open up the next round. So stay tuned. Shoot me a message. Let me know that you heard the show on your guys' audiences. And I'd love to interact. I'm very friendly and I love to engage. I love every single one of you. And I appreciate you guys here today as well. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for your time.
No, thank you. Really have to acknowledge you again for all your fire, your drive, your motivation, and yeah, for all the things that you represent and you currently do. And with that in mind, thank you so much, guys, for listening. This has been Grateful Show, and until next time, stay grateful.